Alright, so today we're going to talk about reflected XSS or reflected cross-site scripting. So reflected cross-site scripting is basically when you can actually insert a script inside of an input field of a web page, which is a common vulnerability these days. Alright, so what we have here is basically an XSS game which is made by Google, and it actually helps you to put hands-on on reflected XSS. So this web page over here is supposed to be a simulation for a search engine, and we're going to attempt to actually perform reflected XSS on this web page. So let's go ahead and do a little search. For example, what we're going to do is basically just type test over here, and then once we hit search, we can actually see that in the query over here, it says test. So this is an indication that this web page might be vulnerable to reflected XSS. So for example, over here, what we're going to do is just say h2, and we're going to say example, and see if it actually gets rendered. So let's go ahead and hit on search. And as you can see over here, example is rendered as an h2. So what does that mean? All right, so for example over here, what we can actually do is just go ahead, open up the developer tools, and then just type a simple script over here that basically just throws an alert. So let's go ahead and type on search, and as we can see over here, the script actually gets executed. Now, if we take a look at the network section over here in the developer tools, we could actually just go ahead and take a look at the query, and inside of the query, if we just go to the payload, the query itself is basically a script which actually gets executed and throws an alert. But what we care about over here is basically the response, which comes from the server. So in the response over here, the server actually rendered an HTML page. And inside of this HTML page, we can actually have a look at our script. So our script actually got inserted into the DOM. And the DOM, basically, it stands for Document Object Model. So if we're going to take a look at the DOM, we can actually just have a look at this diagram over here, where the document is the parent element of all tags over here. We can actually see the HTML tag, the head tag, the body. And the HTML tag is the parent element for the head tag and the body tag, and so on. I mean, take a look at the body tag over here. We got A tags and H1 tags. They are just children to the body tag. And this is basically what the DOM is. It's basically just anything that you insert inside of your HTML document. And it shows you the relationship between a parent, a sibling, and a child. So for example, over here, we can actually see that H1 and the A tag are siblings because both of them belong to the body tag. So after understanding what a DOM is, we can actually see that the script that we just executed is part of the DOM right now. I mean, take a look at this. We can actually see that our script is a child to this B tag over here. So it gets inserted into the DOM and it gets rendered to the user. And in the end of the day, this is why it's called reflected XSS, because the server, what it does is basically reflect this to the client side, so it doesn't get stored on the server. You can actually see this from the response tab over here. And that's about it. This is how you can actually exploit a reflected XSS vulnerability in a web page.